Welcome to this Tableau Certified Data Analyst video. Today we're going to be talking about fixed level of detail expressions. And so the topic specifically that we're going to cover is first we're going to look at the syntax, and then we're going to take a couple of examples. First looking at customers first purchase, and then looking at sum of sales per region. And so pro tip, if you find I'm going too quickly or too slowly, please adjust the speed of the video. Now for the syntax, the whole thing is inside of curly braces. And then you'll have a level of detail keyword, fixed, and you could also use include or exclude, but we're going to focus on fixed for this lesson. Then the dimension declaration, which shows what level of detail you want the expression to operate on, followed by a colon, and then an aggregation expression. For example, you could say curly bracket, fixed, and then region. And so the level of detail expression will operate at the region level. So it's like doing a group by in SQL with region as the group by. Then colon, and now here's the aggregation expression, which is sum of sales. So this is saying we are going to sum up sales with a group by on the region. So we're going to do sum of sales for each region, regardless of what else is going on in the view, regardless of the level of detail of the view, because we are using a fixed level of detail expression. The other thing is if we want to use more than one dimension in the dimension declaration, we just put commas between those. So if I wanted to do sum of sales at the region and segment level, then I would just do fixed region, comma, segment, colon, sum of sales, instead of the way it is there. Now here is the documentation, and I'll be pasting a link to this under the video. So now we are ready to switch over to our demo. The first thing I'd like to look at is the customer's first order date. That's going to be my first example. So I'm going to do customer's first order date, and I'm going to do a fixed level of detail where I do customer ID, and then colon, and then min order date. And so if I drag customer ID into the view, and I take a look at the customer's first order date, I can take a look at this example. I'm going to add order date as well here. I want to put that in the view so I can see those three together. I'm going to add order date like this, and then right click, view data. Let's take a look at this example here. Full data. And so we see that the year of the customer's first order date was 2014, but the year of the order date is 2016. So this is basically looking at all of the records for this customer and finding that the earliest is in 2014, even though the current record is order date is 2016. So it can look across rows by customer ID, even if that's not what's currently in the view. Even if the level of detail in the view is something different, it will still be looking at the customer ID and finding that earliest order date. And so now what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask the question, well, how many, in 2016, how many customers were there that placed their first order in years earlier? So if I do order date as 2016, now I want to see when their first order date was. So it looks like actually even in 2016, most of the customers placed their first order. Most of the sales came from customers who were first placing orders with the company back in 2014. Actually, the vast majority of the sales. And so I could basically, that's kind of a surprising thing that we have pretty sticky customers who are staying with us for multiple years. Most of the revenue that we're earning is coming from customers who first placed an order back in 2014. So that is an example of how we could use the fixed level of detail to look at the customer level across time, even though the customer level is not what's in the view. This only has the year of the first order date. It doesn't have the customer ID in the view. So that's the first example I want to take a look at. The next is to take a look at sales by region. And so I'm going to create another level of detail view and do fixed, and then colon, and then sum of sales, right? And I want to do it by region, like so. Oh, something went wrong. We got a exclamation point there. I guess I left out a parentheses. So I just add that in, double click, and I'm going to add the region. Put it like this. So this is sum of sales by region. And if I put in a state as well, oh, did it the wrong way, you'll see that the value remains the same. So here I have additional detail in the view. I've included state, but it ignores that and always gives me the total sales for the region. So if I put sales in my view, sum of sales, you see the individual state level sales, but then you also see the total for that region. And so this allows me to calculate the percent of sales by region if I want. So I could do percent of sales by region. Right? So I could do sum of sales divided by sum of sales by region. Add this, add it to the view. Now it's currently just showing 0 because it's not formatted correctly, so I'm just going to change the format to a percentage. And so now we see that Indiana, for example, accounted for 10.7% of the total sales in the region, while Texas accounted for almost 34% of the sales in the region. There are other ways you could do this calculation, but this is one way that you can do it using a level of detail calculation, is to say, okay, this is the total sales, and this is what percent of sales for this region. And so those are a couple examples of how you can use level of detail to basically, I guess the one other comment I would make is that by default, when you do aggregations, those aggregations are based on the level of the view. So for example, sum of sales is giving me, for this case, it's giving me the total sales for central Indiana. And this is giving me the total sales for central Iowa, and so on. And so if you want to do it at a different level of granularity that's different from what's in the view, then you need to use a level of detail calculation to specify the granularity that you want the aggregation to happen at. And so in this case, we're saying regardless of the level of granularity of the view, we want to calculate the sum of sales by region. And it's not going to duplicate or give you a higher number just because you have multiple values. It's not going to sum it up. It's always going to keep it kind of consistent, right? So in this case, it's more granular. That what we have in the view is more granular, and so it ends up repeating the value, right? So this value just repeats because it's saying, well, okay, yeah, you've got more granular view here, but I'm going to give you the same number over and over again. And so that's one case, and then the other case would be where the view is actually less granular, right? Where suppose we remove the region, we remove the state, right? And so in that case, it does end up summing it up, right? So this is sum of sales by region, but then summed up for each region. And so then we get 2.3 million overall, right? So, if you include the region here, you see that it's these values. And then if I grand total it, analysis totals, column grand totals, you see that it's 2.3 million overall. So that is an introduction to fixed level of detail expressions.